Now, Jeff English, let's have a chat as we can probably have a little bit of a break since the presidential elections. Everything seems to have settled down after some pretty wild rides on markets around the world once Donald Trump was elected.
Well, Graham, pretty interesting running up into the election, the day of the election, seeing the wild swings in markets, and then to see the reaction after that. And you and I have just commented that his victory speech surprised the market. So there's a whole range of different sort of factors that have come into play, and a lot of people with opinions.
Well, we saw the markets, like even here in Australia, we were down about 104 points or something, and then almost the day after or 2 days after, they were back up again. Where do you reckon it's all going to go from here?
So, Graham, we had the jitters. We had the Trump crash, and then we had the Trump rally just as quickly. So, we were down about 2% on November 9. Japan was down over 1,000 points, about 6%. The Hang Seng, almost 3%. Germany, about 3%. But the recoveries have been just as swift. What we saw in the US was that their futures market, which was an indicator of what would happen there, actually hit its down limits prior to the market opening. But the Dow that day rose 270 odd points, about 1.5%. So the recovery since has actually been quite good. If you look at where our market is now compared to where it was before the election, we are, as of yesterday, about 3% higher. 1.6% higher from the day before the election. So we're actually higher, having gone down and then back up, than we were before all of the jitters started. The Dow, for example, about 4% higher. So it's actually been good, and I think the basis for that started when Trump stood up and actually didn't really sink the boot in like we thought he may. Reverse of his tone helped the markets to feel a little bit more comfortable and start to focus on the economic outcomes that may happen, because that was his big thing, is that even though he talked tough and he's talked about $1 trillion worth of infrastructure spending, which seems ridiculous, at least the thinking behind some of these things is stimulatory, and we should see economic growth off the back of it for the US.
All right, so if we do see that economic growth, that's going to obviously have an effect on markets worldwide.
Absolutely, and he's talking cutting business tax rates from 35% to 15%. That's going to be a bit of a struggle, because you've got to look at these things to see whether they actually end up creating massive deficits for the economy. Infrastructure. He's got a stance on foreign trade agreements, and that could be a big challenge in his own party. And that might be where we see, even though they've got this clean sweep in both houses, that his own party may actually look to limit his actions. So that's something that we would not want to see in Australia. The Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, if that's gone, then that will adversely affect our rural exports. So there's potential for a high US dollar, putting pressure on the Australian dollar. So there's potential downsides for us. But I think the essence of the policies are good. It's the size of them and keeping him in check that will be up to his party and all of them.
Yeah, well, Barack Obama would be, slightly angry because he never ever had control of the houses, whereas Donald Trump does. But unfortunately, the party itself isn't impressed with Donald Trump.
That's right. So you see Obama hamstrung by the opposition. Trump may be hamstrung by his own party.
That's right. Exactly right. It'll be interesting to see what happens in weeks and months to come, particularly after the inauguration takes place in January. Okay, if you'd like any financial advice whatsoever, feel free to give the staff a call at Retire Invest. Their number is 46393733. 46393733. Jeff English and Steve Lowe, thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.